Welcome to Grimm's Frightmares. This is Grimm, coming to you now from a dark, shadowy room. They're strange things, aren't they? Shadows. Simply speaking, they're a region of darkness created when light is blocked by a solid object. They're two-dimensional projections, and yet it's impossible to fully grasp what is contained within that space. Depending on the light or the position of the person, a tall man can appear very small, and a small child can become a towering giant. And a forest full of trees can become a terrifying mesh of skeletal fingers and arms. But what about those shadows that have no obvious sources? Those whose solid objects simply don't exist. What secrets do those shadows contain? Tonight's story comes to us from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, where a high school senior is experiencing some frights of the shadowy variety. But don't take my word for it. Listen to the story's author and tonight's guest narrator, Michael Robinson, and let him tell you in his own words about the boy who lived in shadows.
As a child, I was told many ghost stories for kicks. My family and friends found it a fun challenge to scare me and my siblings with the best stories they had. I was a skeptic. Believing in ghost stories like that were nonsense, and I didn't scare easy. Since then, I have lived through some unexplainable events that have virtually scarred me for life. Let me take you back to that time frame. I used to live on a hill, about 100 yards or so ahead of an old Baptist church. My house was surrounded by a forest. It was gorgeous during the day, and it was amazing to see the sunlight breach through the leaves and shine over the creek out back. It was peaceful and calm, almost like it was a land touched by angels. At night, though, that's when it became dark, misty, more like a cliched forest you would see in horror movies. It was hard to believe how something so beautiful could become so ominous, as if it was Jackal by day and Hyde by night. I was a typical teen, full of unnecessary stress and constant complaints. I always thought the world was against me, so I needed a place to go to clear my head during the tough times. As much as I enjoyed walking through the forest during the day, I knew if I wandered off and was out after dark, I would have gotten lost and probably scared to death due to my anxiety. Most things terrified me without explanation, but being alone for some reason gave me a sense of peace and quiet. So I would go down to the church, take a couple laps around the empty parking lot while listening to a mix of punk rock and alternative to help me clear my head. The crazy events of mine began on a fall night in September 2011. I was home alone, while my family went to our local baseball park for games. I enjoyed being alone. As a matter of fact, most of my life I basically preferred to keep to myself. It was that night I started to hear what sounded like strange and fast-paced thumps around the house, as if somebody was running around the game room. Of course I thought that was impossible, considering I was the only one home. The sounds went on and off for a few hours that night. I began to get nervous. I decided to do a small investigation. At the worst, a wild animal got into the house and was trying to figure out how to get out. On the way back to the back room, I made sure to turn on every light in between. When I got to the back, the room grew silent, and to no surprise, nothing was back there. I checked under the computer desk, the futon, and even the chairs, and found nothing. That same night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. As I sat up on my bed, ready to go out the door, the sounds of running steps appeared again. This time I thought maybe one of my siblings were up as well, or one of my parents were keeping busy because they couldn't sleep. I opened the door and went to the back to see if they were okay. No one was there. I walked to everyone's rooms, my parents, my sister, even my brother's room. Everyone was sound asleep. I have to be losing my mind, or maybe it was a mouse. I went back to bed and decided not to dwell on it. At the end of the week, I was stressed. School sucked, and I had been having trouble sleeping every night. That Friday night, I felt like I needed to clear my head, so I got dressed in warm clothes. I grabbed my phone and my headphones and headed out the door. As I was putting my headphones in, I took a quick glance down at the church. My body froze, and a random chill consumed my body. Down the hill, under the streetlight on the church parking lot, a small dark figure stood facing me. I had seen way too many horror films, so I knew dark figures alone at night in empty places were something to stay away from. But being the curious cat I was, I decided to do the cliche thing and call out to it. "Hello? Are you okay? Can I help you?" No response. The curiosity again consumed me, and I continued down to see if I can find out who the person was and what they wanted. As I reached the bottom of the hill, past the line of trees, the figure had disappeared. I took a few laps around the church in search of the mystery person and came up empty. When my parents came home, I thought about telling them, but I was certain they would think it was part of my imagination. The next few days were very unexplainable. My TV would turn on in the middle of the night on its own, my light would flicker, and I could hear random scratches coming from my closet. I thought again maybe it's a mouse, and it was messing with the wiring. One night, I woke up during a state of sleep paralysis, which I had only experienced a handful of times. But this time it was different. As my eyes surveyed the room, my heart began to race as if it was trying to burst in my chest, like in the Alien movies. Left to my bed stood a dark figure of a boy. I can remember staring into what looked like cold, dark blue eyes. I couldn't confirm for sure, but it looked as if the boy was around the same size and shape as the dark figure I had seen down at the church. I tried to move my mouth, call for help, but nothing would come out. My eyes finally closed tightly, meaning I had broken from the sleep paralysis. I opened them back up, and the boy was gone. Was it only the final moments of a nightmare I had not yet awoken from? Had to be. But it wasn't. For many nights in a few months' time, I would have the same experience. Wake up during the state of sleep paralysis, see the boy standing next to my bed, just staring at me. During that time period, I constantly felt tired from lack of sleep. I was terrified to close my eyes again, thinking I could wake up in the same state and be helpless to do anything. Another few weeks went by, and the strange events became more frequent. I usually keep the door to my closet closed, due to my paranoia. At night, I was starting to hear steps and random thumps behind my door. My anxiety must really be flaring up this month, I thought. I mentioned to my mom that I was hearing and seeing things. She told me not to worry. I was probably just imagining things. What an original answer. My mom's words always seemed to comfort me, so despite what I was experiencing, I took her words to heart and decided to ignore what was happening with me. Maybe it really was just in my head. I was nearing the end of the school year. Things had been somewhat quiet, with a few nightmares in between. There were a few weeks until graduation, and all I could think about was what I was going to do when I finished. It was the last week of April. Baseball had started back up, and once again my family was out to the park. I was home alone, on the computer looking at different colleges and planning the rest of my life out. As I was scrolling through the sites, I began hearing fast-paced thumps again, this time coming from the kitchen. I was irritated and had enough of this, so I got up in a rage and stormed to the kitchen. I turned on the light and yelled out, "All right, come out. I'm sick of the bullshit." Nothing. I walked around the kitchen, the living room, even my parents' room. No sign that anyone or anything was in the house with me. As I started walking back to the game room, I saw a shadow rush by. I bolted to the back, hoping to catch the intruder. I made it to the back and I felt my body stiffen like water turning into ice. The shadowy figure of the boy I saw during my sleep paralysis was staring at me again with his cold, dark blue eyes. It's happened, I thought. I've officially lost my mind. I got angry, yelled and told him to go away. He put his finger to his mouth as though he was trying to shush me. In a flash, I saw a shadow bolt into my room and the door slammed shut. I was petrified. I didn't want to take another step back into that room. Again, though, curiosity got the best of me. I opened my door, and the room was empty of any signs of the shadowy figure. I even checked my closet. Nothing. I had several conversations with my mom about the events that happened last week. She said she believed me, though I felt like that was more to help make me feel better. I moved out shortly after graduation, and the nightmares I had endured were slowly becoming a distant memory. It was only that summer when my mom was telling me disturbing details. She said she started hearing footsteps throughout the house, and swore she kept seeing a boy moving around the house as well, especially when she was home alone. Worse than that, my sister started experiencing weird events. Her TV would turn on at night by itself, and for some reason so did her hairdryer. My old room, where my brother currently stays, there have been mentions of strange noises in the closet and the door opening by itself. All this happened between 2011 and 2012. Still to this day, in 2017, my mom still says that there's a boy that lives in that house.
If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to subscribe below and check out our other offerings here at Grimm Scary Tales. You can also find us on other social media. Just click the links on your screen. If you have a story you'd like to hear us read, click on the link to submit a story and tell us all about your own personal Frightmare. Thanks for listening.